Boom 0. r/AskReddit. People who got fired on the first day of the job. What happened? Not me, but a kid where I used to work was chosen the day he started for a random drug test. They did these once every few months. He said, no problem, clocked out, and never returned. Not me, but happened when I was working at McDonald's. New guy came in and when he saw that we were trashing patties if they had been sitting too long, he ate one. Then he started just eating them from the supply. Dude must have inhaled 10-12 patties over a couple hours after repeatedly being told to stop. Eventually, he started making himself a burger with the buns and eating it as well. Got fired first day on the job. I'm still convinced he had no real plans of working and just wanted to see how many free burgers he could eat before getting canned. How do you not recognize the goddamn hamburger when you see him? Just started a new job and a guy on my training group on the first day started offering people LSD. He didn't have a second day. That's because acid destroys time perception. He's still on the first day. Not me, but I was working at the time. I had worked at a Panera when I was in college as a shift supervisor. We were looking for a new prep guy, and my manager interviewed this guy named Hennessy. No joke. I told my manager I didn't like him and not to hire him, but he did anyway. His first day he shows up and we give him some training on what to do when he gets to work. After about 4 hours my manager asks if he can take a minute out to go grab a new box of chips. Out of nowhere the guy snaps and says, "Bitch, you don't know me. I'm from the hood." My manager, without skipping a beat, says, "Yeah, and I'm from management. Leave." Fired him on the spot. That is probably the most badass moment of that guy's life. Failed the mandatory new hire drug test. I've never done drugs. I got hired as an independent contractor for some over the phone tech work. Hours were 8 AM to 6 PM. Okay, that's perfect. I go in and get acquainted, start taking calls, and hours go by. I'm wondering when I get lunch. Newsflash, no lunch, no breaks. Independent contractor or not, pretty sure here in the US you gotta give people some breaks and a lunch at some point in a 10-hour shift. Some kinda law about that, I feel sure. So I tell my new boss, look, I'm starving. I'm going to get something to eat. I'll be back in an hour. He said if you leave, don't bother coming back. So I left and never went back. I got a seizure while serving someone at a new restaurant. It was my first of a 3-day trial period, so I don't think I was technically on the books yet. Needless to say they never called me back. They should have put in you charge of martinis and other shaken drinks. Not me, but a guy I knew. I work in the oil field. New guy comes in on night shift. I tell him to go check the giant oil tank to see how full it is. It's a tank as big as a house. He looks down inside it and uses his freaking lighter to get light. Nobody was killed. His job was eliminated for safety reasons. A guy showed up on his first day, went through orientation, then out for beers with his boss and a few others. His boss was talking about his 16-year-old girl and the new guy straight face said, "Is she hot?" This was a 24-plus-year-old dude. His first day was his last. I'm late, but I have a really good one. Not of me being fired, but of someone I fired about 4 hours into their first day. When I was in school I worked as an assistant manager in a deli. In all those years, this one girl stood out as the absolutely worst employee imaginable. She was just so stupid. Things she did. 1. Customer comes up and asks for an extra side of ranch dressing. We had those little plastic dressing cups all over the place. But does she use one? Number. Her solution is to grab a napkin and pour some ranch dressing on it and hand it to the customer like that. 2. When it was a bit slow I said, "Hey, why don't you take a moment to wipe down the tables?" Obviously, I meant the empty tables. But I look over to see a whole group of customers cradling their food and drinks in their arms because she has asked them to take all the stuff off the table so she could wipe it down. 3. Like most restaurants, behind the counter and in the kitchen we have floor drains. This is so that at the end of the night when we wash the floors, we can use a copious amount of water to get them really clean and then squeegee the water into the floor drain. So a customer comes up and says he got the wrong drink, diet versus regular or whatever. I said, just pour it out and give him what he asked for. Rather than take 3 steps to the sink to pour the drink out, she turns around and pours it into the floor drain, getting soda all over the floor and splashing it onto our pants. 4. While fixing a turkey sandwich, in plain view of the customer and myself, she kept popping pieces of the turkey into her mouth and eating them. 5. Customer walks up to give her order and she says to her, "Do you mind if I go to the bathroom real quick before I take your order? I gotta go really bad." 6. Customer asked for black pepper on his sandwich. At the time, it was the holidays. All of our salt and pepper shakers were these unique Christmas ones. You know, one was Santa Claus, one was Rudolph, etc. She literally comes up to me all frustrated and says that she can't tell whether the shaker in her hand is salt or pepper. I grab it, shake a tiny bit into my hand, and say, "It's salt." 7. Customer asked for an egg white omelette. She asked me if he still had to pay for the whole egg. 8. Customer asked for a medium coffee with part skim milk, part whole milk. She poured the coffee into 2 separate cups, one with skim milk and the other with whole milk. 9. Final straw. In the middle of taking an order, she pulls her phone out and answers a text. The crazy part was when I told her that she should just leave. It didn't work out, and she shouldn't come back. She kept acting like it was my fault for not explaining stuff to her, like the rule that you shouldn't answer a text in the middle of waiting on a customer, or that she didn't know we weren't supposed to use the floor drain to pour out drinks, or that she didn't know she wasn't supposed to ever tell a customer that she had to go to the bathroom, that she didn't know there was a rule against eating the turkey off of a customer's sandwich, and yeah, she was a college student. I got into a fist fight with the owner's son. In my defense, he started it. If you're working with the owner's kids, no matter their age, chances are it's gonna suck. Unless the owner is an old school hard ass who wants to teach his kids about the real world. Working with the owner's son was the first time I got to be in charge, and I loved it. Not me, but I got my roommate a job with my company after he graduated from the same school with the same degree I had. He graduated a semester later, and due to my internship with the company I was able to put in a good word for him. He worked as a contractor for a few months until he finally landed a full-time position. He and I were living together again, so we would drive in together. On his first day, he was called into a meeting. 15 minutes into the meeting, our manager came out and asked me to drive him home. Wouldn't say why. Found out they believed he faked his diploma as it read awarded posthumously, after death. He was obviously alive and I watched him take and pass most of his classes. Turns out the school fricked up and he's getting some big settlement out of it. Not me, but a young girl we hired based on a manager recommendation. It was a software developer job. First day, I started giving her some knowledge about the system. Every time I say something she would ask what's that, like, here we use XML or JSON. Okay, what are those? I will explain, then proceed to say, and we use Java here and PHP here. I'm sorry, what are these now? I told that manager if she comes tomorrow he will have to fire her himself. She didn't. I wasn't fired on the first day, but I saw someone get fired. I got a job working in a grocery warehouse, driving a forklift in the freezer section. This freezer was supposed to be kept at -20 degrees Fahrenheit, which means they actually kept it a little colder. I once saw it at -46 degrees on a rainy day. Day 1. As I'm getting a brief tour around the place by a rotund middle management fellow, we see a group emerge from the freezer. One guy in the middle clutching his mouth, tears in his eyes. You know when kids dare each other to stick their tongues onto poles during winter? This guy did that of his own volition, in this incredibly cold room, and had to wait until someone stumbled upon him for rescue. He was fired on the spot. Janitor job at a hospital, cleaning bathrooms in the patient's rooms. An old lady laying in her bed called me over and said she was born in Germany and she'd learned to speak English but couldn't read it very well. She had a get well card from someone and asked me to read the poem inside. I did. Someone reported me because I wasn't supposed to interact with patients. Got fired before lunch. I got this. When I was 17 I got a job at Chuck E. Cheese. I worked the front door and once an hour I had to put on the Chuck E. costume and parade around the place. Here's the deal with those kids are dicks. They kept constantly running up to me and hugging me and punching me in the crotch. After about 5 hours of this I'd had enough. I purposely didn't attach the head to the body. It was supposed to button into place. So after the 20th or so time being nut checked I had enough. I backed up, did a stupid little dance, grabbed my headpiece and slowly began to twist it around my head. The kids started to freak. Some screamed, some cried. Parents started protesting. The older kids started laughing. The attendant who was with me fell out in laughter. I thought it was hilarious. However, the restaurant manager who hired me didn't think it was that funny. I got ushered out the back door and banned from that particular Chuck E. Cheese. Do I think it was worth it? Hell yes I do. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. See you in the next video.